Hi everyone, this is Pete here. Welcome back. So the National Day rally for Singapore just finished, and after watching the video, I wanted to quickly share with you guys what are my thoughts on some of the housing related matters that our Prime Minister Wong has mentioned over here. Alright, so what are the most important things that he mentioned during the National Day rally? It is actually over here. So you can see right here, he talks about three main areas. And this time round, he focused on the north, right? Because previously, we have touched on other areas during National Day rally, but not the north, right? And he said actually the north is not as far-flung as and remote, or he used the word ulu, as it is. Okay, so let's dive into what he mentioned. And I want to share with you guys at the end of the video something that I feel is even more impactful going forward, not just these three areas. So one of the first areas he talked about is actually Kranji. Okay, so over here, Kranji is kind of like a sleepy town right now because there isn't much housing there. There is a race course that's currently already being shut down. The government is taking back the land. But the important thing to note is that in the future, Kranji is going to be quite well connected, right? So over here, he mentioned that there's going to be the North-South line and Downtown line, and over here, the Kranji station. So this area in orange is the current race course that is being taken back. And he talked about what is going to happen and how much housing there's going to be. So in total, he said that there's going to be about 14,000 housing development right there, both public and private. Hopefully, they are not just building housing, but also the supporting amenities such as, convenience store or even malls, shopping center, supermarket, so that the place will be vibrant. And the next place he mentioned is actually Sembawang. Now, this actually forms a follow-up from what was previously mentioned about Sembawang. Right, so a few months back, it was actually mentioned that Sembawang North, right, this whole area is going to be developed. And this time round, they add on the development plans for the Sembawang shipyard that is currently ongoing. And honestly, when I look at the picture, I'm really impressed. Like, the picture looks really good. However, whether it will turn out exactly as this picture, no one knows, right? But the future looks bright over here. Now, in total, looking at Sembawang, now they didn't mention how many housing estates there's going to be in the shipyard area, but if we just look at Sembawang North as an area, right, they mentioned there's going to be around 10,000 housing units, right, 8,000 for public housing and 2,000 for private housing. And finally, we are at the gem of the north, and that is the Woodlands area. Now, there are a lot of things talked about during his sharing on Woodlands, talking about the Woodlands Causeway and stuff. But I think to me, those are not as important. The important thing is to look at the developmental plans over here, right? So this is what I meant by the supporting amenities, right? So for example, this is going to be integrated development. That means we are going to see a mall right smack in the middle. We're going to have an MRT station, and of course, not forgetting the JB Singapore, right, our RTS link that's going to connect both countries together. And you can see all this beige area are going to be housing estate, and they're going to add a primary school here as well. And I think this is important because if you look at the Singapore primary school selection this round, right, there are actually many schools that are oversubscribed. So there is kind of like a situation whereby maybe not enough schools in heavily populated area, right? So I think this is a fantastic move. Now, how many people are going to be able to stay in the new Woodlands North area, right? So in the Woodlands North Coast, they mentioned that the first BTO project, right, will be launched this year, okay? And they're going to yield about 4,000 homes as well. So overall, these are the three major areas. And you can see that even if you add up all the housing estate together, right, is probably just shy of 40, 50,000, right? While that's not a small amount, but really that pales in comparison to an area that I think is going to be really the blockbuster for the new developmental plan. So if you see over here, yes, we will talk about the former race course and Sembawang shipyard, but really to me, the best development potential is actually Paya Lebar Air Base, okay, and is right over here. Now, why do I say that? It's because this area is significantly larger than the other three areas combined together. Okay, so this is previously when they first did the sharing on Paya Lebar Air Base, the redevelopment, and they said that the Paya Lebar Air Base and surrounding industrial area, it is equivalent to the size of 5 Toa Payoh towns. And it's not just that it's new land for development, it is also the surrounding land that's going to be redeveloped as well. Why? Because for Paya Lebar Air Base, due to the aircraft coming in and going out, there are height restrictions for buildings nearby so that the airplanes don't crash into them, right? So without the air base, actually, many of such areas are able to redevelop and build taller buildings as mentioned over here. How many buildings are we expected in the size of 5 Toa Payoh towns? And it was estimated back in the National Day Rally 2022, right, by back then Prime Minister Lee, is 150,000 homes, right? So you can see this is significantly larger than the 3 other areas that was being mentioned. And why do I think this area it is prime for investor? Because we can just look at the surrounding place and look at the growth potential over here, right? So this is Paya Lebar Air Base. You can see it's a very big plot of land, right? In fact, if you just take a look at it, it makes Bedok Reservoir look like a very small lake, okay? But if we look at it, wedging the left and the right, they are actually housing estates, right? Including private homes that are already done up and built. So we can just take reference of their performance to have a sense what we would likely to see in Paya Lebar Air Base, or maybe even more, right, without the height restrictions. So firstly, I'm going to look at the Tampines Avenue 10 area. So over here, you can see there's a stretch of condos over here. So if we take an example of Arc at Tampines over here, okay? So this lease started in 2011, it was completed in 2014, 574 units, so quite a good size. And you can see that there are 196 profitable transactions over here and no unprofitable transaction thus far. And if you look at recent transaction where the units are bought in around 2021, right, they have all made huge amount of profit, right? Over here, you can see the annualized gain ranges from 7% all the way to as high as 13%. Now, you might wonder, hey, Pete, it doesn't seem like that much when we look at the profit level. For example, 3-bedders making at 300K, 2-bedders making about 300K, 400K. And that's because the original purchase price is much lower as well, right? So why I chose this example is because Arc is actually not a new project. It is a pretty old project. So if old projects can make money, then you will know that this area has good potential even when you come in as a resale buyer. Another example is Tropica. Tropica is even older. The lease started in 1996. And let's take a look at the performance right here. So far, there are 67 profitable transactions, only 2 that are not profitable. And you can see some of the most recently bought units, right, in 2021 make a whopping $500,000 for a 3-bedder, right? That works out to be an annualized figure of 13.8%. But not just 2021. Why I chose Tropica is also because it is a development that has relatively few transactions, if you notice, right? Just 67. So even when it was bought earlier in 2018 and 2016, we could still see good amount of profits being made by the sellers. So what does this mean is that, yes, some of the units here might be slightly older, and as they get older, the number of transactions drops, but they still can see pretty sizable profits here. Alright, next one, let me move to the left side where we have the Kovan, Hougang area. And let's take a look at one of the condo that's near the MRT, which is Kovan Residence, right? So this is actually lease started in 2007, done in 2011, also about 521 units. Let's take a look at the profitability. Over here, 106 profitable sales, 3 unprofitable. So generally, I would say most people made money. And you can see recently bought units back in 2022, 2021, 2020, and even 2019, right? So this is a very good range for us to look at because it stretches across the COVID period. So we can kind of filter through what is the COVID profit, right? And you can see generally they all make good amount of profits, right? From 3-bedders, sometimes even making 700, 800,000, right? To 4-bedders making 800,000 most recently as well. So yes, all in all, while this year's National Day Rally's focus was in the north, but really, to me, I like the potential here at Paya Lebar Air Base, and I can't wait to see the development and what are the various private condo projects that's going to come out from here as well. Okay, so that's all I have to share with you guys. What do you feel about National Day Rally? Do you wish that there will be more clarity on other topics, right? Put your comments down below and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.